That's my cue. I'd like to call the King George County Board of Directors for the Service Authority to order.
Please rise for the invocation led by Miss Bender, and please stay standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please all bow your heads. Please, God, look over everyone in this room and every resident of King George County, the state of Virginia, and the United States to make sure you keep them safe and to make the best decisions in the days forward. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comments, so that it can be properly recorded in the record. First off, we have Reverend Davis. We'll go at a list and then we'll jump into folks that are here. I'm sorry, I didn't even see you standing there when I started.
She's welcome to go first. It's fine with me.
If she'd like, if you want
Would you
to.
like to go first? Anyway, my name is Sherman Davis. My address is 15203 Hall Road, King George, Virginia. I vote in the Doggin district. And I'm hoping that this, which I do every time that we have a meeting, doesn't become old hat. That is a wonderful blessing to be able to read from the Word of God and start off each meeting as such. I'll read an Old Testament verse tonight in Isaiah chapter number 9. We read it many times, a part of it at Christmas time, but it's far from being fulfilled. The Bible says in Isaiah 9 and verse number 6, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. And his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." He's called a lot of things today, but that's not what he's called today, it seems. The Bible says in verse number 7, "Of the increase of his government and peace, and there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform it." The Bible is all about God and government, believe it or not, and God and politics, if you please. It's about the will of the Lord on earth. He made it, He created it all, and He is going to be one day, in spite of our intentions to get rid of Him, He is going to be ruler over the entire earth from the very throne of David in Jerusalem. Of course, man rejects the will of God, and you think, go back in history as far as you want to go, and you start out with the Canaanites, the Jebusites, the Amalekites, and the Hivites, and the Persites, and you go back and the Palestinians, and the back to the Philistines, and King Ahasuerus, which was an Esther, where she influenced him and saved the nation of Israel at that time. Queen Esther. There's Nehemiah, Artaxerxes, and there's David and Solomon and all the good kings and all the bad kings, the Babylonian Empire and Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, and how God put Daniel in the Babylonian Empire to influence the king. And of course, there was the Assyrian Empire and Jonah, who went to Nineveh to preach the word of God to get people saved. The Greek and the Persian, King Darius, the Roman Empire, and Jesus right in the midst. And I'm running out of time fast. Every government on planet Earth has failed, and failed miserably. One day, Jesus is going to return, and things will be very different then. And they all said, amen. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Level?
Hi, my name is Ana Maria Lobo. I live in Presidential Lakes. I want to thank the supervisors for your service to the community. But also I want to ask why the people of King George had to wait so long with the taxes. This is not the first time that we have had to wait. Also, the supervisors need to be clear about the tax deadline. Posting the exactly deadline at the Department of Revenue will help. Some say next Friday, others say the end to the month. Where is it? You have to understand that now everybody has the money to pay the taxes the right away. For instance, I do not have my mortgage company pay my taxes. I grew up tired of the way they handle my escrow account, and I take over myself. For that reason, I had to pay my taxes in time. I would like to thank you for keeping the taxes this year the same as last year. I also want you to acknowledge and thank the previous supervisors and the people who helped me with the elimination of the decal. After all, we all benefited. It's not too much, but it's something. Since 2021, the taxes was increased almost 40%. I feel this was due to the assessments were wrong. I hope that when the next assessments are due, the Department of Revenue communicated with the supervisors. A special thank you to Mr. Norman Rizavi and the supervisors who help or assist him. I think I see some progress with the service authority. With the debt, I will appreciate it if more was paid on the principal and less on the interest. Banks love interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Level. Reverend Shaw.
James Shaw, James Monroe District, columnist, Northern Neck Sentinel, new hat, advocate. As a result of this hat thing that has developed quite organically and without much of a plan in mind, the opportunity has arisen to meet all kinds of nice citizens of King George County. The frequent comment I receive basically goes something like this: I could never do that. That is to say, talk in front of a group of people and have one's words and actions immortalized in some cloud-based server in a data center far, far away. They generally think you're doing a great job with the King George Renaissance. So this evening's presentation is dedicated to those people that you supervisors serve and those that elected you. This is for the people who thought they were underrepresented or perhaps even in an extreme unrepresented. This august body, the Board of Supervisors, is a democratically elected and representative body of all fellow citizens. Since this body is listening, I find myself in a unique, challenging, and humble position as an advocate to represent a group of folks who have no voice. Sometimes they're called the silent majority. I'm honored by the trust some of these folks may choose to put in me. I will do my best to voice their concerns to those present here with a reasonable level of accuracy. So, here's to the quiet, the meek, the humble, the workers, the servers, the failures, the successful, and the ones who see this county differently. These public servants need to hear from these wee small voices too. And thus, as an advocate, I will try to be their articulate voice when called upon as needed. May God bless King George County.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Good evening. I'm Ann Klockner. I'm Executive Director at Legal Aid Works. We've been serving the King George community since 1973. The reason why I come here tonight is to thank you sincerely for reinstating your support of our organization in the current budget. You face very tough fiscal choices when assembling your budget. And with this support, you have affirmed the pledge you just gave, your allegiance to justice for all. It's a pretty important ideal. And what does justice for all really mean? It means parents keep their families from illegal foreclosure or eviction. Domestic violence survivors get protective orders and child support. There's absolutely no right to an appointed attorney in civil legal issues. So if someone can't afford a lawyer and faces life-altering civil legal issues, tough luck. So Legal Aid Works tries to fill that justice gap, and your support is making that important work possible for your neighbors in need. I really appreciate what you've done to allow us to continue to have this support from your county. And as you provide good constituent support to all your residents, including those of the lowest income who we serve, I'm always happy to provide you with referrals for who we are, what we do, and ways that we can help your constituents. So if you ever want a one-on-one to describe more about who we are and what we do, I'd be more than happy to talk with you. And I just wanted to come here tonight and sincerely thank you for that funding and for that support. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else in the audience? Seeing none, Mr. Dine, is anyone online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any written correspondence to any members of the board? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Turn it over to, nope, I will, 8011, issuance of warrants against general checking fund. All right, there's no motion, so that will die.
Hold on a second.
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion. I'll do all three, well, I have two together. I'll make a motion to accept as presented 08-01.01 and 08-01.02 as presented.
Is there a second? Properly second. Is there any discussion? All those favored by roll call, Mr. Davis.
Aye.
Mr. Stroud.
Aye.
Mr. Sullins.
Aye.
Ms. Binder.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, constitutional officers. Is there any constitutional officer who would like to have the floor at this time? Seeing none. All right, Ms. Binder.
You need to go back to reports of members of the board.
You're right.
That's why you threw me off there.
All righty. Reports of members of the board. Thank you, Ms. Binder. Let's start with Mr. Sullins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank everybody for coming out tonight. We got a slightly smaller crowd than we normally do. Thank you. We have a slightly smaller crowd than what we normally do. I'm hoping that's because everybody's on vacation. And my report tonight is going to be fairly short because I was on vacation last week, and it was actually nice to drive, kind of take a whirlwind tour of the Southeast and see various relatives. Some of the stuff that I have been up to, some of us got to go to a town hall at Hopyard about the green energy renewables application for a data center that's looking to go in adjacent to where the Amazon permit is. That was a little more colorful experience than I expected, but it was still kind of cool to actually interact with that number of people. So I appreciate all the folks that came out for that. Just a reminder that we have a couple of town halls coming up. Sergeant Major Frank from the school board and Mr. Davis and I are going to be meeting or making ourselves available at the Smoot Library on the 17th of August, which is a Saturday from 10 o'clock in the morning until 12 noon. And again, on the 21st of August, that's a Wednesday night from 6 to 8 p.m. So if you can't make one, hopefully you can make the other. But come one, come all, whatever topics you want to talk about. The plan was to try to answer some questions about the referendum for the potentially building a new school. But if whatever topic you want. We're making ourselves available for you all. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
All righty, Mr. Stroud.
Thank you, sir. So I also attended the Hop Yard event, the briefing on the green energy ventures, and it was a good event. So probably the best thing about it is, unlike other data centers, it gave the people the opportunity to engage directly with green energy ventures, and it was a good event because it gave them the opportunity to ask that, and both sides to explain their position. I also attended the NSWCD high power electromagnetic environmental effects ribbon cutting over on base, and that's a huge thing because of the things we're able to do there, really to support war fighters that are currently fighting right now in the Red Sea, and other preparing our other warriors as they go forward with the tools that they need. So those were both good events. I appreciate people coming out speaking tonight. Both Pastor Shaw, Pastor Davis, and as well as the Santa Marie. Thank you so much. And I also appreciate you acknowledging the support to the legal. And you know what we do is very small as compared to what you guys do. And you're actually on the front line supporting those people that I know myself, I'm unable to. So I definitely appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am. So I have nothing further to say, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming out. Thank you, ma'am. It was an honor. We're glad you're part of our community. Everyone, according to our Constitution, deserves a right to be defended, to be protected. Sometimes it's the smallest people that get run over, and they don't get that. And I know Jonathan back there nodded his head. He's one of those ones that takes care of small people, as they say. But the small people sometimes are some of the most important if you listen to what they're saying. Thanks everyone for coming out. I got a couple different, I just want to speak to kind of what I'm getting emails from constituents. Some are, a lot of people ask me what's going on with the Amazon and how's that negotiation going, things of that nature. And I can't really get into all the details of it. And there's some people who are like, stick to your guns, Mr. Davis. And there's some people who are like, just take the deal. And I can't just take the deal because the deal is not good for King George. There's no really incentive to it. And I'll just talk briefly on that is, part of it is they agreed to somewhat give us 600,000 gallons of water per day, which is exactly what King George needs. And why it's important for us to negotiate this. There is no water treatment plant for that water that we would be getting. And a water treatment plant, in case people don't know, no matter how much money Amazon's promised to give us, a water treatment plant could cost us $100 million. So you take all that money that they flashed in front of our eyes of what they could give us, what we're going to do, and how are you going to build a school, pay your teachers more, how are you going to pay off your debt when all you're going to do is accumulate more debt by having to build your own water treatment facility? It doesn't work. But more importantly than that, if King George, because everyone knows we got to get off of well water and people are going to be moved to the top water. If that's the case, then Amazon controls our water. If Amazon controls our water, Amazon controls King George County. If we might as well get rid of our economic development board because they won't have any power anymore because Amazon will decide who comes here. We'll have to go to them and say, well, we need more water so we can get some economic development in our community, and it'll be up to them whether or not they want to give it to us. Because what business is going to come if there's no infrastructure and to support it? And people got to understand that at the end of the day, there will be no more business. Economic development will cease to exist here because Amazon will be in control of our economic development. We won't have a say-so over it anymore. We'll be going to them saying, can we please get more water? And they'll say yes or no. Sounds like a bunch of kings to me. And that's not the position I want King George. I think King George people should be in control of their own water. They should be in control of their own resources. And we should be in control on how we grow our town. And so people think that we're being hard-headed on this. And I'm just letting you know that we're thinking long-term future, that for the next 50 years, that there be a company in our town who controls our water system, controls how much water we get. And how are you ever going to get a business or a Lowe's or a Home Depot or anyone else to ever come to our town if they got to go through them first? And that's why we're being so hard-headed about this, because it's the best choice for us long run. I know it looks painful to some people right now, but at the end of the day, it's worth the stand that we're taking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Ms. Bender?
Yeah, have Lee go first before myself.
Okay. Lee?
Sure, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Davis. I think it's a hard thing to follow here, but I'll do my best. But I wouldn't say being hard-headed is a bad thing, because we need to do the right thing for King George, especially when it comes to the water that we give people in the community and the water that we provide to businesses. So this past week, I had the opportunity to speak with a water treatment company, following up on some constituent recommendations as we move towards the treatment of surface water, and was able to speak with this company for a little bit. They have a very good, robust, and scalable product that has the opportunity to, in a small footprint, about 2,100 square feet, clean 1 million gallons of water a day. So looking at something at the size of a standard individual house, being able to clean a substantial amount of water is, I think, very significant. Now, as long as that comes at a affordable cost to the service authority, a solution of that nature could be something that's viable. So we still have some information to work out with them, and I have some information to provide to the rest of the board that they sent me yesterday. So I'll go ahead and get that out to the board members here. But aside from that, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Appreciate your comments. I know not many were directed for the service authority today, but always good to see community come out and stay involved. Appreciate it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bender?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank, I forgot your name, ma'am. I think you've been in front of us before in my time on the board, and I always advocated, but former boards didn't want to fund it. So I'm glad we finally funded it, and those that might need a little extra cash to get legal representation, I'm appreciative that we can give that to them. So thank you for coming, and I do appreciate it, and it's good to see your face again. I want to mention also our town hall at Hopyard. It was a very robust conversation, and it was an opportunity that another data center did not give the citizens. So I think that's where some of the robustness came from, because people were a little annoyed that the last one did not give that opportunity. I also want to acknowledge, since he's in the audience, Mr. Jonathan Franklin, who's been trying to assist at least one resident in Shiloh, and I know there's others that have come because of the question with the aquifer, and understanding there's more than one aquifer, and a lot of residents are in the shallowest and their wells have dried up. And so trying to get assistance and find an alternative or a way to pay for getting an alternative. So thank you, Mr. Franklin, for your department trying to assist some residents that have, unfortunately, their wells have dried up and can't afford to dig a deeper well like I have in my house. Next up, I do want to mention a couple, and Mr. Smolnik will be mentioning them later. We will be having a couple of service authority town halls. One of them will be on August 12th from 4 to 6 here in the Rivercombe boardroom, where we will discuss the easements that we will be seeking from some residents to connect the Canterbury and Circle wells. So we will talk more about that during the service authority. And next is on August 27th at 4 p.m. Same here in the boardroom. We will be having what we're calling a fog meeting, or a fog town hall, where we will be having the restaurants and businesses come in, and we can talk to them about the new ordinance we're putting in place. And then lastly, on September 5th, from 5 to 7 p.m. here, I will be holding a Shiloh town hall where anyone can come and meet and greet. I'm not really going to have a presentation. You just have 2 hours to come and chat with me and discuss whatever's on your mind, service authority or county business. I also attended with most of my colleagues the ribbon cutting on the base. It was cool to see how the residents of King George are building things to help test equipment that do protect the United States of America. So it was kind of cool to see this building and watch the ribbon cutting and going toward it. So thank you for that, the base for that experience. The next up is I wanted to inform everybody that I was asked to serve, and I accepted to serve on the Eastern Virginia Groundwater Management Committee, which is, I think, really important, especially to what we're facing in King George, and the fact that in discussions with DEQ in the last week about the interconnect and having to get a modified permit for the interconnect of Canterbury and Circle, most likely that permit will be also tiered, which means we're on a second clock, and the clock is going to an alternative water source. And why this is important and why I've always been passionate is, like Mr. Davis said, a private company should not be holding the water of the residents of King George. Water is for human consumption, not ones and zeros. Water is for a right for us to survive, because you can have all the money in the world, but unfortunately, it'll line your coffin if you don't have water. And so water is very important, and we need to make sure that the residents of King George have it and not have to beg a private entity for it. And that is the end of my board report. Thank you.
All righty. Ms. Bender, Board of Directors consent agenda.
Mr. Collins, do you have a report?
I would have gave one if I had one.
Well, I'm just double checking. Just want to make sure. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Next up, can I have a motion for the Board of Directors consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the Board of Directors consent agenda as written.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. All right, next up, we have no action items, and then we will bring up the discussion item of the approval of the Canterbury and Circle Interconnect well users letter. Mr. Rasavi, would you like to give a little more information on that? The letter. Correct. You have to touch the microphone. Is it on?
We received notification regarding the interconnect, and we're going to try to establish a meeting with DEQ to further clarify some of the issues that were raised in that letter. It's, I guess, essential that we get these systems interconnected because some of the well issues that have been raised by, I guess, the Department of Health. And so I think that's something that we'll be scheduling some future meetings to go into more depth and try to resolve any concerns that DEQ may have.
Thank you, Mr. Rasavi. And a little more information, it's in the packet. We just want to get approval so that we can send them out by certified letter. These are to those that are going to be affected by the interconnect. And that's part of the reason we want to have a town hall here, so we can bring the citizens, especially those that we are going to be asking easements from, that they can come in and ask questions. So has everybody had a chance to look at the letter, and is everybody okay for it? Doesn't really need a vote. I just need a consensus that the letter is fine with everybody, so I can sign it, and then we will send it out. All right, next up, I'm going to skip my monthly report, and I'm going to go to a little bit of an update on the fog. I'm going to give my report at the end because I want to mention the fog, because we do have a new employee that we're grateful we got to hire him real fast. He has a lot of experience in Charles County, Maryland. Mr. Richard, let me see if I get this right, Paragori. Did I get this right? Richard, come up and step up to the podium. It gets to be your first time putting you on the spot, but I kind of prepared you a little bit. Mr. Paragori does come with a lot of experience. He has already been out talking to businesses and giving some informational items. He does have experience in fog. And in the interview, one of the things he had asked about how we've done the program previously, and I said, you're the first fog inspector, so you get to be part of a new thing and kind of help shape it with us. Mr. Perry, would you like to talk about anything that you observed today? If you don't, that's okay. I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
It's going to be a task for the. It's going to be a task for a while because it's fresh. But I think with the help and support of the board and the county, we should be able to get there.
Well, thank you very much for taking on the job, and we appreciate it. And we're going to get this all, the roadmap to success is what I call it. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Right now, the fog ordinance, Mr. Smolik, it is on the planning commission, correct, the ordinance, and then the final will come to us. Could you give those dates out?
Yes, ma'am. There'll be a planning commission public hearing on August 13th, and then it'll come back to the board for another public hearing August 20th.
All right, thank you. I did mention this to DQ when I spoke to them last week, and they were encouraged by that, but they, yeah, as always, they still want a little bit more improvement, especially on the I&I. So the fog, I think, this process will help out a little. I did get to view a video Mr. Eisenbeis showed me today that I'm going to cut it up a little bit to be showed in the planning commission. It is eye-opening, and this was just a video taken at Bayberry, and this is a residential of what, when you dump grease and oil and other items down into the system, what it can do and what it does to the plants when these little, what they call sludge balls, get there. So it's a good program, and we're going to try to roll it out and do a soft roll so that a lot of businesses want to be part of the solution. They've reached out to Mr. Rasavi already and the service authority, and we're trying to soft roll and explain to them why this is really important. Most of the businesses are more than happy to be on board, and that's why we are doing the town hall. I already mentioned the public hearing. Only other thing is in my monthly report, as I mentioned before, we have spoken with DQ a couple of times about the superseding consent order, the tiered permit that is going to come for the Canterbury and Circle Well. And one other thing right now that we do need to put on our radar, and it goes back with, businesses controlling our water, even with the new hookup and sending the water to Hop Yard, we still do not have a lot of capacity, and maybe not any capacity for any development from the Circle or Canterbury well for industrial use. So we need to keep that in mind, because they view as in the modeling human consumption obviously more important than industrial. So that we need to keep that on our radar, because that was mentioned during the call. Next up, do we have online the BMP compliance group? I know they said they can be on at 6 o'clock, so I'm hoping they're available. This also, for those of the public, while we're waiting, this is very important to help us implement the FOG program and to keep a report of all the businesses when we visit them and that they're complying, and pictures. It's a really good program. We did get to view it last week. All the board members could have chimed in. I know everybody has a busy schedule, but they should give a little informational here. I think it's a good program and it's a reasonable price. Mr. Dines is.
He's not on yet, Madam Chair.
Well, I'll take a moment. Is there any other questions any board member has while we're waiting? Mr. Rasavi, do you have anything further?
Well, Madam Chairman, I see he's arrived now, but just briefly, we're working with the engineering department, Mr. Eisenbeis, and the contractors from Imboden. One thing is not going to solve this problem for the service authority. There are multiple items that need to be addressed. We met on Monday about the new sludge press for Dahlgren, also some of the aeration equipment, and also with the UV system. And so it's going to be a combination of improvements that are going to get the service authority where it needs to be. So it's not going to be a magic wand where we do one or two things and everything's solved. We're fixing a lot of issues that, quite frankly, and there's no sense in retracing history, but some of these things are questionable. Maybe at that time the flows weren't as significant, but we need to do the right thing and get the right equipment in place to be able to handle the future needs of the county.
And with that, just before we have the gentleman come on and give comment, is we are working diligently to figure out with Ms. Cobb and her staff of the funding sources, because not all of this is going to be funded by ARPA. So we are still looking at the numbers, and I know the financials are out at our financial consultant, just double checking the numbers so we can look and figure out the process of funding these projects in a timeline for funding them. Because obviously we're not going to be doing them all at once. We're going to have to make sure that so that no rates have to be raised to fund these projects. We're going to try to look what we have and come up with a plan. Go ahead, Mr. Dines.
see.
Mr. McLeod, correct?
Correct.
All right, could you go ahead and explain what's your program?
Sure. Do I have the capability of sharing the screen?
Mr. Dines?
It says the organizer has to give that permission. Okay. Can you all see that okay?
Yes, we can see. You can proceed.
Can you see the application okay?
Yes.
Okay. So essentially, this is the fog B&P application. This is what would be utilized to ensure to keep the sewers running smoothly, as well as the fats, oils, and grease out of the environment in general. So this is a program based on EPA compliance. Essentially, what this does is it allows the county to keep track of every facility within their jurisdiction that produces fats, oils, and grease. The fats, oils, and grease produced by the restaurants is typically what's causing any elevated levels of fog within the sewer system and thus in the plant. Major public health hazard and environmental hazard, as typically the leading cause of any sanitary sewer overflow is fats, oils, and grease. Not different than your home sink. When you put in too much grease into that sink, it will begin to congeal on the insides and eventually a backup will occur within your kitchen. Just think of that on a macro level within the sewer system. So left unchecked, if there is nothing in place to track these facilities, these restaurants that are constantly cooking every day, this fats, oils, and grease is free flowing into the sewer system, reaching the plant, causing problems biologically in the plant, causing problems with the filtration in the plant, causing problems within the sewer system, causing problems within the lift stations. So instead of randomly knocking on doors all over the county and seeing what facilities have a correct installation of a grease interceptor and are getting it pumped on a regular basis, this program allows the county to oversee every facility from a single dashboard. And so if we select the store list here, there are some facilities in here purely, for example, off demo. They were just taken randomly off Google Maps, but these are facilities within the county. And if you look at them, you can see if they're overdue on their grease interceptor cleaning or not. You can also manage them from that. So you can very easily go to a facility. You can very easily see its cleaning log. These are supposed to be cleaned typically on a 90-day basis. If there's no oversight, they're probably more than likely not clean. If they're not getting cleaned, they're just putting straight fats, oils, and grease into the environment, into the sanitary sewer system, and into the plant. This program allows the county to oversee all the restaurants, all the cleanings, have EPA compliance, keep the water clean, and the environment clean, and the plant operating efficient. And so this program is built specifically for that. And without this, you would be tasked with trying to track all of these restaurants from a single spreadsheet or something like that. This is real-time data, instantly cloud-based, very easy to use. Used by a ton of major jurisdictions in Virginia already, so I'm very familiar with the marketplace and how it operates. So basically, at any given time, the team can have analytics. They can see how many facilities they have, how many grease separation devices they have, how many are late, how many are on time. They can see how many sewer overflows they've had. They can do inspections from here. They can do data reports. You can have tangible data reports showing this is where we started, 6 months later, this is where we are, a year later, this is where we are, making sure every single facility is in compliance. Also, every facility is given a free access to all sorts of trainings. This is what you should and shouldn't do within your facility when it comes to fats, oils, and grease, and why it causes problems within the environment. And basically shows them, as the whole emphasis of this is, if you are a facility, such as a restaurant, generates fats, oils, and grease. There's certain responsibilities and expectations that accompany that if you're connecting to the sewer. It's no different than any other facility that connects to the sewer. You have to make sure that if you're utilizing the county sewer, you are not causing problems within it by discharging fats, oils, and grease. There's nothing alien whatsoever about facilities getting pumped on a regular basis. Typically, most chains, major chains, are already pumped on a regular basis the minute they open. Probably a lot of facilities flying under the radar, not getting the grease interceptors pumped if in the past there was no way to tell if they were pumped or not. But what this program will do is basically enable King George to keep the sewers clear and keep the plant running efficiently by giving total oversight of every facility. Every EPA-derived plan is implemented through this for them. They have every tool they need to manage the program. It's very straightforward, very reasonably priced, and again, already used by a lot of places within Virginia for this exact same thing. Are there any questions overall?
Does anybody have any questions? It's very self-explanatory. I did get your more thorough presentation, and I think it'll be great to implement. As always, we already know this answer, but could you just, it's $2,500, correct, for a year subscription?
That's correct.
Which is pretty reasonable for all what you get. So thank you very much. We don't have any questions. I guess you wowed them with your presentation. I thank you, and it looks like a really good program.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I feel like it'll work very well for you if your goal is to keep the plant running and the sewers clear. I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
I will get the screen back.
So part of Mr. Paragori coming is purchasing this program, and then we will be getting him an iPad or a tablet. Mr. Dines, did you choose which one yet? iPad?
It'll be an iPad, Mr. Chairman, yes.
And with a rugged bag so he can go out. This is normal equipment that is used for this position to go out and take pictures and upload the information for the inspections. So is there any other questions on FOG?
Madam Chairman, we
Go ahead.
might want to point out also that the businesses will be able to upload their grease haulers and so forth, will upload the information in here so that the FOG coordinator can monitor, especially when he goes out and finds ones that may be problematic. He can check if it's every 90 days or how often it needs to be pumped out. It will send a notice to him and sort of flag it so that he can check with that particular business to make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing. And also there's training. They didn't go into it as in depth this evening, but there is training on there for the employees of the restaurants, free training that they can go on there. And I believe they said receive a certificate, I think, in FOG management and so forth.
And then also there are flyers and things that they can print out they can post in the businesses or back in the I guess, food prep area. This is not just restaurants, it's also car washes and automotive shops that do create a lot of grease. So we will be sending out letters to all those locations to come and view the presentation on that day. Two other things I want to mention. I do want to thank Mr. David Burge, and I hope I got that right. He's one of our GIS, our great guys in GIS. We had asked him to put together, he just sent it to me, some mapping of all the county and school and properties, because we're trying to find locations of possibly a reservoir or where to put water towers or water treatment plant, because we do research and you need more than 11 acres at least for a water treatment plant. And so we were trying to look at availability. If none of the data centers pan out, that there's other places that we would be able to have county-owned land. So I just want to thank his staff. He did it in quite a quick time, and so it was a lot of property. So I appreciate his staff for helping us out create that list. I also want to acknowledge, and you guys didn't have to answer any questions tonight, I do want to acknowledge John Simmons from Aboden for coming to our meeting, and Mr. Eisenbeis and Miss Patty Norris Barker for coming and coming to the meeting in case any questions were needed. Thank you for always showing up and ready to answer questions. And the last thing I want to mention is a lot of the projects like the UAV system and the sludge fest are being financed by the ARPA funds. We did receive $16 million for certain projects that have already been approved by DEQ in the ARPA process, and they're already decided on, and we will be starting to use those funds right now, actually, and we will have it all encumbered by the end of the year, and then we have until 2026 to actually spend the funds, but we have to have it all bid and decided and allocated by the end of this calendar year. And then we did receive the VDH grant of $5 million, and that was given to us by VDH specifically for the Circle and Canterbury Interconnect. So I just wanted to clarify that for the public. And lastly, I will open it up for a secondary public comment for the Service Authority. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so that it can be properly recorded and included in the public record. Does anybody want to come up and give public comment? Is there anybody online that would like to give public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Did anybody see any correspondence while we were sitting here? Right? With that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I move that we adjourn until August 20th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom of the Rivercombe Building.
I have a motion properly second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. And thank you, Mr. Rasavi. He'll be making his way out. Thank you very much for your help. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Collins.
Alrighty, no public hearings tonight. Presentations, 8:02, Miss Southall, Native American Heritage Trail.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm here to just give a quick end report on the Native American Heritage Trail project that we had. So just a quick recap. This was a $30,000 grant from the Virginia Tourism Corporation that paid for 7 informational signs, 10 geocache puzzles, and a geo tour, 1,000 brochures, 3 advertisements and magazines, a tourism video with 10 shorts, as well as some stills. We had a ribbon cutting opening the trail on June 11th. We had staff speakers, board members speak, as well as a representative from the Potomac tribe. And we had about 30 or so attendees to that event. On June 15th, we had the Geo Tour launch. We let our interns, who were the main spearheads of this project, speak on behalf of the county. And we had about approximately 15 attendees, most of which came over from Maryland. A little quick update on the Geo Tour. We implemented a completion survey on June 28th at the location where you go after you complete the survey. It's secret, so I won't say where. And so far we've received 7 responses, 6 of which have been Virginia residents, 1 of which is a Maryland resident. The furthest visit has been from Waynesboro, Virginia. On average, they've reported they've spent about $50 in King George on their trip doing the tour. And we've also had a 4-star average review saying that they would recommend King George to their friends and family. And then we've also had some great media coverage from the press release. We've had 2 stations in Richmond, News on the Neck, Fredericksburg Free Press, B1.5, Freelance Star. We also had MSN pick up one of the Richmond news stations article and share that as well. And then a couple weeks ago, VTC reached out and said that their global media relations and marketing team would like to share the trail internationally. So got some good news there. Part of the project was a deal to get a tourism video for us. And so what we did with the tourism video is we took all of the locations and highlighted not only that they are along the trail, but also that they have recreational assets for visitors to come and enjoy. And so here's a quick 2-minute video of the overall long form of the video, though we have plans in the future to share it in short form and other assets as well. But I wanted to let you guys see what we had here. We had over 150 residents sign up to be participants in the video. About 75 of them we reached out to, and about 50 of those or so showed up. And then the lucky other participants were people who just happened to be at the location that day, and I pestered to join in the video. So I think, Mr. Dines, you might have to click to hit play.
Imagine waking up to the sounds of nature. Then, and reconnect with nature. Stories of innovation and transformation. Challenge yourself to exhilarating trails. And unexpected memories in George County.
Apologies for the audio issues. Promise that didn't happen last time I showed it in this room. But yeah, open it to any questions you guys have about the end report.
Anyone have any questions?
So
Mr.
thank you.
Davis, you have,
Yes, sir.
go ahead.
So thank you. You're doing a good job. But I forgot to do it in my opening comments. Can you tell us exactly where everyone can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and all that again, what our handle is?
Yes, our handle on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter/X is at KGVA.gov. We're also on Nextdoor, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Thank you.
All righty. Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Southall. 8:03, July Independence Day after action report, Mr. Clark.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Presenting to you tonight after action report on the Independence celebration that was held last month on July 6th at Sealston Sports Complex from 7 to 10 p.m. This year we had over 725 cars on site. I had counted prior to the event that we had 700 either marked spots or predicted spots based around like the bus loop. And we put cars on a field where we've never put cars again. Word is spreading about the event, so we project somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 people. We're either on site at Sealston Elementary School or Sealston Sports Complex, or even in the surrounding areas. Again, Sealston Deli's lot was full. Sealston Automotive's lot was full. We got those reports from the sheriff's office, and cars just started pulling off the road as the fireworks started. So we had cars parked on the side of Kings Highway, Butler's Chapel Road, and the school access road. This year, we could not have done this event without the support of Visit King George, our Economic Development and Tourism Department, and you all. That was $25,000 on the fireworks. We had two sponsors this year. Westbrook Homes was our presenting sponsor at $3,000, and our stage sponsor was Green Chip E-Waste Solutions. They were also a $3,000 sponsor. They wrote me back second and said, hey, we want to do that too. And I said, okay, I'll make you the stage sponsor. I'll give you everything else the same. And so we had banners up for them, announced them from the stage. The banners were actually hanging behind the band. So any pictures of the band during the event captured at least one of those three banners. So it was a really good partnership, and it allowed us to do everything except for part-time staff and Facebook marketing covered by revenue that was brought in other than the fireworks. So the Radio Sparks was our band. They came through Sam Hill Entertainment. They were phenomenal. I had people that are in the music industry or closely to it, and they were very, very happy with the performance that we had. American Fireworks Company again knocked it out of the park. When I met with them, actually it was about 8 o'clock before the show, the lead technician came and he was giddy with excitement with some of the things that we had. And I'm like, this guy has just launched 6 fireworks shows in 7 days. And he's like just jumping up and down almost ready to do our show because there were shells that most people I guess don't get. American Fireworks Company's been very good to us with what they've sent us. Jazz in the Country was on site. We offered them a booth spot to help sell their event. Bubble shooters or novelty toys, they do pay as a vendor. And then the VFW Post 12202 had their information booth out and did some activities. Kids could say the Pledge of Allegiance and get different prizes. So it's always nice to have them out there with us. Food vendor wise, we were the fullest we've ever been. We had 9 paid food vendors and then the VFW Post. The VFW Post supports us not only at this event, but they do our concessions at the Parks and Recreation soccer program in the spring and fall. They operate the concession stand for us as they're raising funds to build their building or acquire a building. And they are a phenomenal partner for us. But 9 companies that were out there, all at $150 each, and most reported very, very good sales. Some others were used to when it was just 2 of them and they were sold out of everything. But they all did pretty well, especially if you had anything cold. You had drinks, you had ice cream, you had ice frozen. One of the vendors said, I need more blenders because I sold more frozen lemonades than I did anything else because it was so hot that day. Marketing wise, Miss Southpaw and Miss Grapes were phenomenal in helping me this, as well as our marketing associate in Parks and Recreation, Michelle Meyer. We were on social media and KG Alerts. Thunder 104 and Super Hits 95.9 called me the Thursday, like 10 days before the event, and said, hey, we see this, we'd like to come. And I was like, what? Well, we'll bring tents in the van and we'll set up. And I said, okay, that's a no-brainer because what do DJs do when they're on the air if they're going somewhere that weekend? They tell everybody. So we got free advertising on those 2 radio stations where they announced, where they were going to be that weekend and set up, and they gave away glow products and stuff. And we're very, very excited to be there. Sheriff's Office always helps with their message boards. They had that up in advance of the event, advertising that we were coming up. Sealston Fireworks Show, Saturday, 7 p.m. was there in the deli parking lot. We were in the tourism newsletter multiple times because Ms. Grapes puts that every week. And then also in the Parks and Recreation Gateway to Play newsletter that went out the week of the event. Finances wise, so there's the revenues. We brought in $6,000 from the sponsors, $1,425 from the vendors for $74.25. When we take that off the entire cost of the event of $33,281.78, or a cost of $25,856, that comes out to about $739 per spectator, using that 3,500 person number. So the total there, actually, I realized the other day that Facebook ads were also covered by the Recreation Activity Fund, or from the Recreation budget, as was the part-time staff. Those were paid out of our 2 budgets. But everything else was charged to tourism, and we were actually short we overspent what we were approved by like $126, and we did make the budget transfer today. We turned that in so that the tourism fund will be made whole and recreation paid for that additional expense that was not approved. Just with some comparisons, at $750, a family of 4, $30 that the county spent on this event. You can't do anything else in this area for close to that. $65 plus parking to go to the Fred Nats, $40 for a matinee movie, $52 to take the family down to Skateland. That doesn't include skate rental. The 2 bowling alleys now that they rent bowling alleys by the hour now instead of by the person and by the game. So we are definitely offering a really great product and a really good family entertainment. couldn't do this without our partners within the county. Sheriff's Office always does all they can for us. Fire rescue, emergency services, they brought out the light tower. They were on site. Chief Dixon helped me with some folks that decided to bring their own fireworks, and we were able to stop them, and they approved the permit for the fireworks for American Fireworks Company. They work hand in hand. Community engagement is always a huge partner. The South Hall answers questions all day long when people are worried about weather, which allows me to run the event rather than worry about what's on social media. Economic development, tourism side with the grant finance, always cutting our checks when we need them. Commissioner of the Revenue's office is working with us. They have all the information from the vendors, but the way the tax deadlines are, we do not have that data yet. And as soon as Ms. Price gets it, she will pass it on to Ms. Puckett and myself, and we will make sure it gets to you. And then the county attorney reviewed at least 2 or 3 contracts for me this year. For next year, we are looking to actually put an event planning committee together. We have grown to the point where me doing this 95% on my own is a little much. So we're gonna gather a committee and try to make the event even better. One of the things that we do look at is parking shuttles. I reached out by email to a couple of golf cart companies this year, but not going in face to face to see if we could exchange an advertising partnership for a couple 6-seat custom carts, and then we could have our staff members driving folks that need that assistance but don't qualify as with a handicap placard from the grass parking lots into the park. We've suggested both for additional activities before and after the fireworks by members of the community as they talk to me. Always looking to expand sponsorships. And then the most difficult thing to watch from the park when the event ends, and I know a couple of you were in that, is the traffic getting out is a challenge. The sheriff and I have had the discussion multiple times about the possibility of being on Route 3. The danger of that blind curve coming out of Stafford County limits the ability to really put deputies in the road to direct traffic. That is a concern of his. So we do work with VDOT to adjust the timing of the light, but we had no operational method of which field emptied first and what order do we go in, because all of our staff had moved into the park to watch the fireworks and we're not out at the edge. So trying to figure out a way how we can direct that traffic and possibly even direct folks to Fletcher's Chapel, go left on Fletcher's Chapel and go up to Caledon Road and get back to their houses that way versus everyone trying to turn right and go out to Kings Highway. So for 2025, I've already spoken with American Fireworks, and July 5th is going to be the most popular fireworks day of the year, and they already have a number of contracts signed. We have always been the Saturday after, even though that would be the 5th. Staff recommends that we go with Saturday, July 12th. We're going to start the event a little earlier next year at 6:30 so that there will be a few more people hopefully in the park when I or someone else introduces the band. I think I introduced them to about 30 people this year, it felt like. Sticking at Sealston Sports Complex, because unfortunately at this time there is no other site that can hold us in the county and have that number of people except for the base. And the base partnership last time we talked was, let's do the whole event on the old runway, which if we get weather like we did this year would be absolutely miserable. And that we have the ability to renew our contract with American Fireworks at the same cost for $25,000, and that will be an item that comes before you in a little while.
Alrighty, thank you, sir. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you, sir. No action items. Discussion item 804, TAC application for 2025 Independence Day fireworks for South Hall.
Good evening again. So essentially, the Tourism Advisory Committee met last month and reviewed Mr. Clark's presentation. And after review, they would like to recommend that the board renew the contract with American Fireworks Company in the amount of $25,000, including a $12,500 deposit that is due by September 1 to secure the July 12th date. I apologize. There was a mix-up on which version to include in the agenda. The only real difference is what is on the screen I put a recommendation of action for you guys to just read off if you agree to do the $12,500 deposit. And the $25,000 overall. Any questions?
This is a first reading, so we'll do it next meeting.
Sounds good. We'll include this version in the next one.
Yeah.
All right.
Ready. Thank you.
Mr. Collins, can I just make a comment? Because we started doing this in 2020, and those that don't understand, there's only a very few amount of people that do this kind of fireworks in the United States, and so you have to book them a year ahead of time to make sure that you get them, because there are only, I think it's 5 in the United States that do this kind of work. It's so specialized. So I just wanted to, that's why it's so ahead of time.
Alrighty. Thank you. 805, Community Policy and Management Team, CPMT. Request for supplemental funds, 24, Child Services Act. Franklin.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board.
Social Services.
I come before you this evening on behalf of the CPMT, the Community Policy Management Team, requesting supplemental funds for the Children's Services Act fiscal year 2024 budget. The CSA forms a collaborative system of services and funding that is child-centered, family-focused, and community-based when addressing the strengths and needs of troubled and at-risk youths and their families. We accomplish this at the local level through two multidisciplinary teams comprised of representatives from my office, Social Services, the public schools, the Department of Juvenile Justice, Community Services Board, County Finance, Health Department, and a member from the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Sullins. Under the guidance of the King George CPMT, mandated services for special education, foster care, and children in need of services, also known as CHINS, are funded through a pool of state and local funds. And although the annual CSA budget is informed by projections, increases in the cost of services rendered and the number of children served in FY24 require an additional budget allocation of $69,791.08 in order for us to end the fiscal year. The number of children served by the CSA program increased from 57 children in fiscal year 23 to 68 children in fiscal year 24. Ultimately, the fiscal year 24 effective local match rate is 36.56%, requiring an estimated local share of little over $25,000 of the requested amount from the county. So I will just note that in your board packet, that is, I believe, posted online, slightly different from what I just read at $69,000. This requested amount, it's amended to include some final invoices that were received when that original document was created.
Alrighty, any questions? Mr. Franklin? Alrighty, we will, that's for discussion, first hearing, we'll put it on the next agenda.
Yes, sir.
Smollett. Next agenda. Alrighty, now the County Administrator's report, Mr. Smollett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm going to start tonight with the capital improvement plan for FY25, FY29. The CIP was presented to the Planning Commission in March of 2024. The Planning Commission made their recommendations in May of 2024. And then about 10 days ago, I presented the CIP sheet that's on the screen there to all the board members. And I asked you all to rank all of the projects. And the spreadsheet in front of you shows the average ranking for each project amongst the 5 board members here tonight. And I also have representatives from each of the submitting agencies in the room tonight to answer any specific questions on any of the projects that they've submitted for. So we have advertised a public hearing for the CIP for the August 20th board meeting. And at this time, I'm going to open the floor up to the board to see if there's any questions on the CIP or any questions for the department heads in the audience.
So I'll go ahead and open up the floor to the board. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or discussion?
I do.
Ms. Bender?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Smolnik, do we have an accurate count of how much ARPA money we have left? And because we have to have that spent by the end of the year.
I'm looking to our finance director. I don't have it off right now. We can get that to you though. I can get it to you if it's not tonight, first thing tomorrow morning, and you will have another 13 days to digest it prior to the public hearing.
That's why I asked, so that we could look, because one of the first things that I know that I would like to see, and I don't know about my colleagues, but is the demolition of the old middle school. From my understanding, there's been some more intrusions in there, and so we need to take away the attractive nuisance.
Just for clarification, the CIP capital improvements plan for this 25 to 29, just so people understand why there's more on it than used to be, because when developers and those that wish to come here for business want to offer proffers, the first thing they look at is the capital improvement plan. So if you don't have it on there, you're not going to get it. So we wanted to make sure that we have an all-inclusive list from all the different services in the county, so it can be captured when those that are looking to come here.
Mr. Chair, I think we even need more in the service authority. We were going to be creating one of these also.
So it was interesting to me, some of the numbers that it came out. How was that computed, Mr. Smolnik?
So we took the average. It was a 5 different tiered approach, 1 through 2 being urgent, and then progressing up towards 9 and 10, which is, way down the road. And we just simply added up all your rankings divided by 5 and came up with an average for the Board of Supervisors.
Alrighty. So go ahead, Mr. Stroud.
Yeah, so I have a couple things. So some of the projections that are in here are the projections that were given to us back when we were approving the budget. So even though they're still in here, we don't anticipate actually needing that much money in some of the areas.
Well, that's correct, but
for budgeting, it's okay.
Right, but it is and it isn't, because sometimes it's false, because you put a projection in there. I don't know, Trailway feasibility study, and 250,000 total amount, 1,250,000, and then what this board has been very concerned about is the actual numbers. When it actually comes time to do it, it ends up being $2 million, and that's something we want to stay away from. So we want them as accurate as possibly can be in the projections. So you have to give a certain percentage raise for every year, or the cost of goods, and on and on and on. That's Mr. Smolnik's job.
So all the items that are in here for the King George schools, these are not items that were identified via the school board?
I can't answer that question. Dr. Boyd, would you have an answer to that question?
So these were identified through mainly our maintenance department and through our technology department for most of those projects, and then approved by our school board. We approved the CIP through the school board before we bring it to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, so sir, on there's a few items in there for the school board office. Is that not the old preschool?
That's if you're looking at that old preschool, that's the right-hand side, the portion of the building that we're currently residing in for the school board office. Yes, that is that portion of that building. So the preschool is the left-hand portion of that building that's now vacated. The real, older, classy, looks like an old school building. The right-hand side of that building is where we reside for the school board.
Is there a price, Dr. Boyd, Mr. Cliff, for tearing down the old preschool?
Good evening. I'm Gary Cliff, Supervisor of Maintenance.
What was your question?
Is there a price to tear down all the left of the school board office, the old preschool?
We haven't got a price. That would need a study as well. There's asbestos and other things in the building that would have to be assessed before you can get a price. I have talked to the engineering department about it and to do that.
So what engineering department is you talking to?
What engineering department have you spoken with, Bryce?
The county, Bryce.
So will the schools and the school board be able to get a price? Because he doesn't have time to do that at this point.
Time to do that right now. I can go look into that.
Thank you.
I have called one of the local excavating companies, and they said exactly what I had said about getting a study on it to see what asbestos hazardous materials exist. The original building is of 1937. Before that, there was one there that was 1925. So you have things.
So is that information not resident in our engineering department? Information regarding the building?
We have information. Yeah, we have some of the older information on the building. We actually have a asbestos inspection every 3 years, and we'll do fourth this year. So we do have all that information on hand of what is there. But I'm sure there's more than what that entails. There's stuff under the ground. There's stuff under the building.
Ms. Bender?
Yes, Mr. Trumbull,
I was going to ask Mr. Smoldick, why do we need a study before we put out a solicitation for bids to demolish it?
That's correct. You're going to need to know exactly what is in there to get a good estimate to put out the bid to get an idea what it's going to cost. That is correct.
But they're going to rely on information that we already have.
I think we have some information, is what I understand. But as far as an in-depth discussion, and the details of what exactly is in there, I don't think we have that detailed information in a report, Mr. Stroud.
So if we put out an RFP for a bid to tear it down, and we say it's got this, this, and this, and it has this much more and this much more, then we're on the line. So I would prefer that it go out an RFP for them to figure out what they have to do in order to raise the building and how much it costs. We know it's got asbestos and there's some underground tanks in there. Might be a few children in the bottom of that building somewhere.
Well, there is 3 boilers that date way back in the basement of that building. Nobody goes down there. It would take a study. There are water lines that run through that building that go to the other building. There are sewer lines that run from the old football field, Hunter Field, all the way around to Route 3 to where the sewer connections are for the county. There are right-of-ways through there. It's an expensive piece of property. There's a lot there.
So I guess what we're trying to find out is what's necessary and how much would it cost to tear the building down. So you have the service authority. You could ask questions of them. You have a whole room full of designs from 1800 back. I've seen all these prints, so you can have a general ideal, furnish that to a contractor, determine what would be an estimate to. We just need to know where we're at, where we can put it, because it's not going to stay there.
We'd be happy to look into it. So.
Thank you. Do you have another question, Mr. Stroud?
Well, maybe for the board members. So there's been discussions on this previously, and maybe it's a planning commission question, but we're spending money. It's not an exorbitant amount of money, but we're spending money on the school board building, but we're also looking to rehab the existing courthouse. Why don't we just move the school board into the courthouse after we rehab it?
My opinion is the school board doesn't need to move. There's a roof work, some HVAC, and some other things. Some of the other things are, in my view, cosmetic, but it's a solid building and still useful. The right side. And they still need to, if you tore out the left side, you still need to, so the second floor is not accessible ADA, so my suggestion would be put an elevator right on that outside of there so so people can get up and down. But other than that, that building's solid, pretty solid.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to stir the pot now. So I liked what Supervisor Stroud said, because I've been pushing for a while. What are we going to do when they leave the courthouse? Now it's maybe November. But as I've always said, and we disagree on this one, I think we should get rid of the whole thing because that's dumping a lot of money in a building that, maybe hasn't had this same TLC for years. And this is a lot of money rehabbing a building that right now we're only using in the end 2/3, well, 1/3 of, or 1/4, whatever you want to call it. And if there is room, because we've done a lot of work, Mr. Smolnick and his staff of figuring out that we really didn't need to move all these departments. We just had to reorganize it in a better way. And the staff has done a very good job of that, that maybe we don't need all the space over there. So bringing the school board office, I'm just concerned of wasting all this money on a building that really has no historical value. The original high school is long gone. It was in where that parking lot is. I mean, a lot of citizens I've heard, they'd rather save the pit more than anything else. And maybe, I've preached this for years of moving, Parks and Rec there and creating, Mr. Davis always talks about, wanting to have entertainment and amphitheaters and maybe even using it for our Parks and Recreation Department, our flag football. That's very popular. I mean, that place touches the hearts. I think more people would like us to save the pit than that old building. I don't see why we would spend all this money to take care of a building that has a lot of environmental issues. If I am correct, the sewer authority doesn't even own anything on that property. It is independent of the schools, correct, Mr. Cliff?
The sewer department does not own anything. We own the sewer system as well as the line that goes across the street and the right of ways. Yes, you're up.
Thank you. And this is coming from me, who's Miss History. And I'm going to say is you don't always want to save everything. And is it worth saving that whole thing when you could do something else with that property? I mean, it's a lot of money to put lipstick on an item that might not be as attractive, but let's do the best for the citizens, use the taxpayers' money properly. And I'm just saying personally, for me, I don't see fixing that place up. That's just my opinion. If there's a better way that we could do, if there's space in the courthouse.
So in the school board office building, the right side, does the roof leak?
What does the roof leak? That roof was replaced. It had a partial replacement, I guess 20 years ago. Half of it, I think it was 2006. Most of it was replaced, but the old cafeteria between the two-story section and the 1937 wing did not get a replacement, and there was some sections on the 1937 wings, the old locker rooms, so on and so forth, didn't get a replacement either.
Right, so that's in the old section, because you won't, if you just have the school board there, you don't have the preschool, you don't need a cafeteria area, you don't need the gymnasium, you don't need any of that stuff. And Mr. Clark, we're not going to put you in that we won't even put our own children in. Why would we want to put our Parks and Rec kids in it? That building is, it's been, anyhow, so the old school board, the new school board building doesn't leak.
If I may, in my opinion, I agree with both Mrs. Spender and Mr. Collins. The building is solid. It's a nice, solid brick and cinder block building, but it hasn't, the electrical is from the 60s. There's 2 or 3 receptacles per room. The plumbing is ancient. It needs a lot of work. The windows, I got a quote on getting the windows just painted one year, and it didn't get bid at, and they wanted $60,000 just to paint the windows.
So the air conditioning and heating works, is that correct?
Excuse me?
Air conditioning, heating.
Yeah, the air conditioning, we got new units put on about 12 to 15 years ago, I believe it was. No, 10 years ago when we went underneath our energy management program.
Right.
So those units are fairly new, yes.
Okay, and the roof doesn't leak.
Roof does not leak.
Only on the cafeteria section.
Yeah.
We're not, that's the old section.
So that would be part of the conversation. That if that is planned to be demoed, then we would need to include that in the plan.
Yes, because
So you're suggesting.
the school board office is just for the school board. And the, so as far as, only thing I see in there really is the fire alarm system. The electrical, is serving the purpose that it needs to serve. It might not be 1,000% convenient, but, it's not been closed down for a fire hazard.
It's extremely hard to find parts for that. We have it inspected every year, and every year Honeywell asks us to look into getting a new one. Please.
Getting a new what?
You said fire alarm, didn't you?
Yeah, I said, I put that aside and said it
Okay.
needs new fire alarm, but it doesn't need to be rewired.
Well, all that needs a complete upgrade. If you were to see that, you would understand it has old Wadsworth breakers that have fuses in the back, so they use the work as a breaker, but you still have to pull it apart and change fuses inside.
Can't you just redo the without doing the wiring?
If you redid the service inside the building, you'd have to redo the service outside. Is that what you're asking me?
It was in the 1960s, correct?
So, but
That's what it is.
there's plenty of houses built in the 20 that still. I'm just asking, can you redo the service?
Sure you can. Yes, sir.
Right, and the wiring can still be intact.
You would I would get an engineer to look at all the wiring inside that building before I made that decision.
It may change phase.
Pardon?
It may change phase.
Phase.
It's part of that building's three-phase, part of a single phase. It's a mixture because it was built so many different times. You got 1937, 1957, 1967.
So basically, to put the new system in, you're probably going to have to replace it because the manufacturer, whoever installs it, isn't going to warranty it if you don't install the rest of it.
So we keep throwing in these other parts of the building. I'm just talking about the school board, the two-story building on the right side, not the cafeteria, not any of the part over to the left, not in the back, not where the 150 dead
But Mr. Collins,
deers are.
you're talking about a building that only, what will that whole building be used for? Right now it has Head Start on the bottom, right?
We have 2 Head Start classrooms
Correct.
on the bottom, and then the remainder of the building is school board.
And then there would be a whole bunch of property then vacant, because the whole property is about 47 acres, if I remember correct.
Head Start's moving out next year, is that right?
Possibly they might move.
That's kind of the plan.
Yeah, I think.
So I think the biggest argument, like, and I love the building, I love history, I love King George. That is prime real estate over there or something. If we're gonna let prime real estate that King George County owns just sit there for to house one thing, I think we're making a big mistake.
So I understand your argument on that. So then you have to build a school board office. So it's either, you got a couple choices. You got keep the building to the right and sell the rest of the property, make a hefty profit, take everything down completely and build a new school board office somewhere.
I don't think there is a possibility it could go over to the courthouse. I mean, when we look at what the courthouse, what we're going to do with it, there is that possibility. I mean, there even be a possibility in this building if some offices were moved over to the courthouse. I mean, I agree. I was only on the board when we looked at the CIP and the mapping, and we on purpose left that little piece still in the development areas so that if in the future we wanted to sell the property for development, that was on purpose done in 2019. So nobody else was on the board except for me then, but that property was thought of at that time to be kept in so that it could be potentially sold because it is prime real estate. So I just wanted to bring that attention.
Or we have to develop a downtown somewhere if we're ever going to develop a Main Street, anything. We're kind of, with residential houses on our main street and everything else, we're very hard for us to build up that type of feel here. So it has to kind of go somewhere. And I thought the only really issue with it moving somewhere else was the fact that all the fiber optic from all the schools are running to that building. Is that correct? Is that that's the biggest expense of moving the school board offices somewhere else, though?
Could a new building be, or a building that you could put that infrastructure in, be on the property if the county still owned it?
That's a technology question I would have to check on. And to be clear, what you're asking is if we could still house the servers and such at that location and not reside in the building.
As long as it was owned by the county or the school.
It would still be owned by the county.
Right, that's what I'm.
So you're not selling all the property. So if you're going to keep it for servers, why would you keep a small portion of the property for servers? Plus, there's a lot more to it than just housing servers.
I think this would probably exceeded this discussion for the purpose tonight, but it is good discussion to have. And, you know, I would probably go in line with Mr. Davis's thoughts and not just keep the school board there. I'd move the school board and use that property probably for something else because of its value to the county and its size.
So whatever it is that happens, it needs to be clear and concise. So if you want to move the building, if you want another building, you got to put it in there somewhere to be paid for.
Well, it's already in here right now.
No.
There's over $2 million allocated to rebuild the old courthouse.
Right,
or that's identified in here.
But not to build another school board building. So so as we grow, so some of these offices like community development are already full. The registrar's office needs more space, and you're going to need more space. So it's going to have to go over there. I don't think you can put school administration with county stuff, can you?
Well, Mr. Chair, this goes back to the discussion we need to have is we need to figure out what we're doing with that building, what we're keeping, what we're not keeping, and what we're doing with it because they're going to, well, now it's November, they're leaving there from there, but we need to do it so we don't abandon it and just sits there and rots and then we have to demolish it.
Would it be beneficial for Mr. Smolnick and I to get together and talk about maybe what our space needs are and figure out whether or not that would be a possibility in that former courthouse?
Well, that would be good, but we need to have not just school board, but the board of supervisors. We need to have we can't give Mr. Smolnick direction and just go in 100 different ways. We need to give him clear, concise instructions. And so we know we have the old middle school property. We know that that building needs to be destroyed, period. We know that the preschool needs to be destroyed. We know we have a school board office building, and we know we have 47 acres there. And we have how many acres at the old middle school?
I think it's about the same amount, is it not?
It is right around the same.
Mm-hmm.
So as we talk about this, we need to, if you're going to start setting aside money, you need to know what you're setting it aside for. So it doesn't seem clear, other than some of these other things on the CIP, but not the schools, that it's clear what our plan is and what the school board's plan is.
And I'd be happy to report back to them and work with Mr. Smolnick. And really, we appreciate the consideration and hospitality and whatever is decided upon together, we're willing to.
Maybe put a hospital on that site.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a couple more questions on the schools?
Yes.
Dr. Boyd, I have a question on the playgrounds because I do know your robust PTAs have raised money and refurbished some of them, including Potomac. So is that still needed?
A new playground?
Yes. Because I know at least Potomac had a redo, and didn't King George Elementary also?
So they have, and with all the playgrounds at all the elementary schools, as they age, each playground, there's probably 3 play sets per playground. Some have 2 or 3, some have 1 or 2, and as they age, they say they're going to have to be replaced. You have, I think, 4 down at Potomac, isn't it?
And they have about a 10 to 15 year lifespan. Some of them are approaching that age.
Wouldn't that be in your budget, though?
Not those playgrounds. I haven't put them in my regular budget because of the cost of them.
Or the school board's budget?
They're well above $50,000, so that would be through the CIP process.
General playground is over 100,000.
Because they have to be handicapped accessible, correct? So my other two questions are the King George Middle School athletic fields. Since I coached there about a year and a half ago, I know those are pretty bad. And I was one of the advocates when they redid the track is to fix the inside. It was never fixed. That made no sense to me. Is that one I think is a need because isn't it the soccer team has trouble practicing there now because of the condition of the fields, especially on the old area where the field hockey was?
So I would like to address this since I was a sitting member of the school board. So that middle part of that field around the track, the middle part was never supposed to, it was redone and it was never supposed to be used for any practices, football and so forth, because of the cleats going across and ruining the track. So, what has happened is instead of going with that agreement of not using that middle, they fixed the drainage, they didn't fix the grass and all that. Someone's decision was to use it. So it's not supposed to be used.
But Mr. Collins, that makes no sense. You have an inside field that has been used for years as a practice for the soccer team and the football team and not using it. All you have to do, this is coming from me who on this board probably is the one who understands about tracks more than anybody, is all you need to do is put down the proper carpet so that the cleats can go over and to make sure that the coaches police that, because in the past the coaches weren't policing it and people were using it as their personal playground with bikes and dogs and everything else, is as long as it's close to the public and the coaches police it and you have the proper carpet, it makes sense, because it does not make sense to have a track with a field inside that's not used by anybody except for the track team when you have all these middle school sports, because where are they supposed to go to practice? The high school has their facility. I mean, Mr. Davis was a football coach at the middle school.
Yeah, I was the one when they came out with the ordinance. The school board decided that we couldn't use that anymore. I was the one who came before the school board. It was like that piece of property has been designated for football since like 1967, and they got mad because I threw the superintendent at the time. They said under the bus, but I'm just being honest, and so we got it back. And we pulled a mat across that thing, and not one cleat. I had football players going across that track on their knees to go retrieve balls, so not one person set a cleat on that field. I don't know what they're doing anymore, but for 3 years, nobody touched that. Nobody
I
did.
do want to say we police it pretty closely,
Yeah,
and they
they're
take
not.
their cleats off, walk across it on their socks, put their cleats back
Yeah,
on.
they and basically give the kids a chance to mess up, because there isn't nowhere else for them to go. The baseball team gets mad when we practice on the field, plus you can't monitor 30, 40 kids walking from all the way back at that baseball field, carrying equipment all the way up. Kids got in trouble when you're doing that because you can't get 2 coaches, you can't catch them all. So that piece of property is designed for that. That's what it was designated for, and I'm not trying to change it.
Yeah, that field and also the field where the soccer team currently practices is horrible ankles breaking, spraining condition right now. It's a lot of knobby grass, and we've tried to do a few different things to make it playable, but it's a rough surface right now for our middle school athletes.
That's why I was bringing it up, because that was the area where all the stuff was stored, correct, during the middle school expansion. So it kind of didn't get landscaped very well for athletics afterwards.
We're getting ready right now. They're working on putting the new field lights up. So that's going to be hindering the field too. So whatever we do to those fields, we need to wait a few months until after our lights are put up.
I just wanted to ask and bring that up. And then the last thing for the schools, as I still have some Parks and Rec questions, is the high school turf replacement. I know that is in need, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Have we thought, and this has to do with safety, of going back to possibly grass, or does it just want turf again?
So, Dr. Boyd, before you answer the question, so during my time on the school board, I was told for 8 continuous years that there was money in a fund that was taken from the athletics for the replacement of that. So was I lied to for 8 years?
I can't speak for anybody that's not here. I have heard that request or that statement from you. I've gone back and taken a look at the school activity funds. I've reached out to the former athletic director. I've looked at some former minutes to see if I could find anything of that nature, and unfortunately, I could not find any agreement that referenced the school covering those funds. And again, it was before my time here. Certainly go deeper into that if I could. I can tell you right now, we're working with a turf management company. They do come out and annually service it. They're letting us know. In fact, I think last year they let us know we had about 2 or 3 more years for that surface to be safely played on.
That's why.
Ms. Bender's question.
In speaking with our athletic coaches and our athletic director right now, they're still in a place where the advancements in some of the turf right now, it's almost like grass with the rubber tire feedings in it and the long length of the turf. It's a little different than the AstroTurf that we would have played on in the 90s or early 2000s. I hear that it's something they would like to continue to go with.
I just figured I'd ask the question, and I know we made a lot of money off of it when we were the only one who had the artificial turf.
Absolutely, and we still have a number of teams in the Northern Neck that if they make it to the playoffs, they call us up and ask if they can use the facility as well.
I got a question for that too.
Sir.
I mean, one of the main reasons why they decided to do that was so we could start hosting like state championships, but they didn't finish it. So what's missing is the visitor seating that wouldn't allow us to hold like bigger championship games here.
Yeah, that actually came up at the end of this football season. We were very close to being able to host I think it was a state semifinal game, and I think we are short about 1,000 seats or somewhere in that ballpark. I'll get the exact number for you. It was just below 1,000 seats, and if we were able to do that, then we can certainly host a state final game, state semifinal game. Other than that, though, we would have to travel.
So if you put, I harped on this forever. You just put some seating in the end zone area, move the scoreboard words, you could make a lot of money on that field, semi-pro and so forth. The Board of Supervisors didn't want to put the money into it. It's an investment that would pay back. That's what I showed them the numbers and so forth.
I agree. We've had requests in the past to use it. There is space. There's a small area where you put a couple hundred seats probably on the scoreboard end of the field. The visitor side of the field has room where we could add some seating as well if we wanted to go that out. And even the home bleachers you could extend that section as well. It's a very nice facility and one that is really, I think, a prize of our community and something that we could probably use more often if the opportunity presented itself.
A question, Mr. Chair, real quick, just because I don't know the answer. Where does the money go? Say, like does KGYA, do they pay money to use the field? Where does all the money go when people use the field? To me, that money should be going into a fund that's used strictly for that field.
It is. It goes into an activity fund, which is the same money that we use to recondition the field and make sure it's playable for the following season. So KGYA is probably the biggest group we use right now that pays a rental fee. It's a facility use process that they do annually.
Okay, thank you.
So make sure I understand it, because I'm missing something. So the money that's getting paid into from like the athletic, it goes into money for replace the turf.
Not to replace the turf, to recondition the turf and to maintain the field. It's not of a sum that's, I think I don't see it right in front of me right now, but it's not $600,000 or $800,000. It's an agreement we have with KGYAA. Don't quote me on this, but it's a couple $100 every Saturday. They roll that money back into maintaining the facility.
Well, I'm not going to. This is the last time I'm going to beat this horse, but I was told by a lot of people in management that are still there in the schools that that money went into a turf fund, and that when it's time to redo it, the money was available, and now it's not.
Yeah, and I hear you. And if you want to point me in the right direction to look into that deeper, I certainly don't mind doing that for you.
Even if they did, it's not of a sum large enough to make a difference whenever you're looking at that. And that's probably maybe what they were thinking of. It just, so I don't know if there's more questions on that. I had a question about the front end loader backhoe.
We, right now, we're getting ready to put mulch at every one of the schools. We probably put 10, 15 dump trucks of mulch in each one of the schools. Right now, we borrow a Parks and Rec tractor to move that mulch around. Their Parks and Rec tractor is getting in rough shape. We could use a backhoe. We haven't been along when we were working on the trailers down at Potomac. The modulars that we just put in, we needed a backhoe down there. We borrowed one from utility. I mean, we can borrow one where we need it, but sometimes we really need one. A few years back, this hadn't happened in a while, but a few years back, we got, 18 inches of snow and our trucks would not push it. So we had to call Parks and Rec. We had to call the authority department and get them to bring their backhoe in to help us clear some of the lots. There's a lot of places, times we could use one.
So, Mr. Cliff, so this whole pushing snow thing, again, when I was on the school board, we spent a lot of money on vehicles to push the snow. So I'll stop getting feisty tonight.
Excuse me?
I'll stop getting feisty tonight.
Oh, no, that's okay. Look, we have to we have to have the trucks on hand.
What I'm concerned about is the management of funds, of what funds are supposed to have been gone for and didn't go for.
Well,
go ahead, Mr. Stroud.
I don't know where you find a backhoe for $55,000.
That was a used backhoe, and I think my secretary looked that up probably 6 months ago, but still
Okay.
it
Used one. So, all right, cool. And then a dump truck.
1-ton dump truck, because we have a dump truck now that we can't get to the backhoe. If we want to haul a small load or something, we have to get our big dump truck. I'm sure you've probably seen it over on the lot, and it's big. We have to get a CDL. One of our guys, we only have one guy on hand that has a CDL, so we have to make sure he's available. We had the 1-ton dump truck, and more guys could do it. We could haul more stuff. We're constantly hauling stuff at the schools. It's a constant.
So I'm sure that this has all been planned for in this schedule of the items needed in your plan, right?
In our long-term plan. Yeah, so again, that was something we worked with Ms. Bender and Board of Supervisors with in the past. We've really stretched out our long-term capital improvement plan to just make sure that you guys and our school board has a good idea of 5, 10, 15 years down the road what it is that we need.
So is this the only thing that you're going to need in 5, 10, or 15 years? So can I see that 10, 15-year plan? Can I see it?
Yeah, it's posted on our website. And if you'd like, I can certainly email you.
Yes, send me a copy, please.
Dr. Bo, I do appreciate this, but I did have one other question is at the middle school, the doors to the gym and the old gym. Is that on here? Because those really need to be replaced in the cement.
We had 3 different companies come out. The first one didn't respond back to us. The second one, they didn't do much. Their prices were way off. So we have a third company now, APV, that we're working with, and we've got a quote from them, and I think it's on a go.
Yeah, I think we've got construction money to be able to take care of that without going through the CIP.
Thank you. I'm happy to see that.
And as soon as those doors are replaced, I plan on trying to get a handicap ramp to that field as well.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else for the school board?
The school bus replacement program, the $650,000 a year for the school bus replacement. How does that work?
So what we do is we usually take our 4 or 5 oldest buses with the highest amount of mileage we have on them. We retire those. Those are the ones that are in our maintenance shop most often. We end up selling those back for a very small amount of money, very, very surprisingly small amount of money. and then purchase 5 new ones, and that keeps us on cycle so that our transportation fleet is in good condition.
Okay. Whenever you sell those back, it's like some kind of an auction site.
Yeah, our transportation director does that, and they do that. I think they work with our vendor that we use to purchase the school buses and work on selling those back.
Okay. And where does that money go?
That money goes back into the general fund. But like I said, when I last looked at it, it's a very small amount of money for those high mileage buses. I can certainly get that information to you if you'd like to know.
I'm just curious how that, how that worked, and so we could see. But I appreciate the time and effort that everybody put into this, because identifying our needs is a lot better than being surprised by it. So it's a lot better to see it. And Mr. Cliff, appreciate you coming and providing the details that are needed in some of these things.
Right, we have, just got one more question for you, Mr. Sullins.
Thanks for coming. So looking at the parking lot budget, $100,000 a year, is that for maintenance or expansion? And the reason I'm asking that is because if we're talking about adding 1,000 seats to the football stadium, where are they going to park?
Well, this is for maintenance. This is for our current asset. You can speak to it better than I can.
Yeah, well, at Potomac, that one needs replaced. There's no other way to explain Potomac's parking lot besides replacement. That's the front parking lot by the office. The rest of the parking lots, you could probably get away with sealing them and striping them. Sealing and striping is pretty expensive, and usually when I put into the budget, they'll tell me I can seal it, but that's not the money to stripe it. So, if you can't get both, you can't do either, because, you're putting stripes onto which is what we've been doing. We're trying to put new stripes on the old parking lot, and it works, but your parking lot is still starting to crack up, and they say the more it cracks up, the worse it's going to get. And, it's turning into what they call alligator skin. So the $100,000 would be to try to do one school per year at least. Potomac, like I say, it really needs paving. The rest of them we could get away with sealing and striping. But like at the high school, that's going to be a major undertaking. That's a lot of parking lot. And not to mention, I need to talk to a paving company to see what it would take to get the paint off the parking lot that the students put on there, because you're not going to get sealer to seal to adhere to paint.
And I think your point about parking for football games is valid. Right
Yeah,
now,
if you're gonna look at that in your 10 to 15 year plan for the seats, you might want to add new parking spaces for those, because
packed right now.
Yeah, people are parking in the grass already.
Yeah, everywhere. Thank
you. Yeah, well, you know how it goes on a football game. You can't control people where they park. There's room over at the middle school, and only a couple people park there. So it's just, people are lazy. Me too. I don't want to walk that far.
Hopefully, we still have a successful football program, and we're packing it.
I'm sure you will. Yep. Thank you. Is there any other department head that anybody would like questions?
Mr. Chair, I had Mr. Chris Clark, a couple questions for Parks and Rec.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Mr. Clark, I wanted to ask you more about the Trailways feasibility study implementation.
Yeah, so that is designed with $250,000 each year set aside in anticipation of getting any types of VDOT grants, which earlier on July 1st of this year, we were awarded, as Mr. Sullins noted in the meeting, after that, $856,458 to construct the sidewalk from King George Middle School to the intersection of Doggan Road and Kings Highway, which includes signal and crosswalk upgrades. Our local match of that is $214,114 for this year. On September 19th of last year, after a public hearing, the Board of Supervisors unanimously approved a resolution of support for that. So, and VDOT has begun preliminary survey work on that. So that is funding that we will need either at worst by the end of July 26, or by the end of the fiscal year 26. But I think Mr. Beal thinks they can do this project faster because they can do it. I don't think they're, at one point we had discussion of them not bidding it, not having to take it out, that they could do it actually from the shop here, and that it may get done in fiscal year 25.
That's why I asked that, because as anybody has dropped their kids off at the high school or middle school and gone that way, you could see that it's a big safety concern because a lot of kids walk.
Yes.
And sometimes quite a distance they walk to get to school.
Yes.
And they walk after school to go to Sheets and used to be Fast Mart.
Yeah, and whatever may be developed on that lot.
Right. And then my second question, and I think you already mentioned it, the TAP grant.
Yes. So if I may, on the school board building, this evening we had 36 participants in our karate classes. They are in the cafeteria of the school board office building. So if that were to be demolished, we would need a place to put not only karate, but 4-H archery and 4-H shooting. If the locker rooms that are attached to the Quonset hut are taken away in any demolition, we would lose our gymnastics facility. That hosts anywhere from 120 to 140 kids 4 to 5 times a year, and in addition has 4 or 5 birthday parties nearly every weekend. And those birthday parties are at $50 an hour. So we're looking at, that's a substantial amount of revenue to the department that we make in that facility, and that would need a home.
Okay, and then the last is this has to do with the land swap, the Barnesfield. So I mean, I understand at least the master plan because we did accept 166 acres and it's just attached to Barnesfield, not doing anything with it.
Yes, we are currently reviewing the RFPs for that. Members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee and our staff are reviewing those. They will turn those in by their meeting next week, and then we will be able to shortlist and set up interviews for the firm to do that master plan. And then once we have that, that's why that project has moved another year down the road, because we're not going to have the master plan back in time to try to do anything for 26.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so we'll have a public hearing on these items. It'll come back in front of the board. Mr. Smolnick, can you come up with your recommendations, please?
Yes, sir, I will.
I'm sure you'll vet them through all of us, but it does look like that there is 1-1 and some 2s and 3s. Alrighty, we're going to move on.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next thing on my report is the Tourism Advisory Committee. So this committee was chartered January of 2016. Members serve a 1-year term. They're not appointed by district, but rather by sector. Right now, Dee Strauss represents marketing promotion, Bob Baird, culture and history, Warren Veazey, outdoor recreation, David Hall, agritourism, Becky Stewart, arts and events, Mark Jennings, civic organizations, and our lodging partner is currently vacant. So right now, the anniversary of these terms come up on the end of August. You know, I was doing some research. I can't figure out, they were chartered in January, how the anniversary for the appointments now are in August. So looking at this, I talked to some staff members today. For the board's consideration would be to keep the 24-25 appointments as they are till December 31 of this year, and then revisit the TAC appointments in January when you're doing all your other board appointments. That way to get it on the normal cycle of a calendar year. And like I said, I can't quite figure out how it got to be in August, but it is. So my recommendation would be to keep if it's the will of the board, to keep the appointments as they are till December 31 and revisit it at your reorganization meeting in January.
Your consensus for that?
I agree. Concur.
Agree.
I agree.
Alrighty. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Third item is the national opioid settlement with Kroger. I believe you're all aware of this. I was contacted last week by the Attorney General's office. I wasn't sure why. In my conversation, apparently some of the communication was going to our old county attorney. We are up against a little bit of a deadline. I believe it's the 12th of August. We need to commit if we want to participate in this. The Kroger settlement is similar to previous settlements that have happened with the opioid distributors such as McKesson, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. And in order to participate, the board will need to pass a resolution and authorize that it's the county attorney to sign the participation form to be part of a settlement. And before you tonight, and what I presented to you, I believe it was early last week, is a resolution of the King George County Board of Supervisors approving the county's participation in the proposed settlement of opioid-related claims against Kroger and its related corporate entities, and directing the county attorney to execute the documents necessary to effectuate the county's participation in the settlement.
So moved.
There's a second?
Second.
Properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right.
Thank you. I've been working with Dr. Boyd. We've been discussing the old middle school. And there's, I've received some comments, well, can that structure be reused? I have not set foot in it, but I've heard the stories of, the condition of that particular building. So working with Dr. Boyd and his staff, we are going to open the middle school up for public viewing, public tours, so the public can see that really this is the condition of the building, and you can't use it for anything else other than tear it down. So we wanted to look at some different options to capture a wide array of the workforce. Dr. Boyd last night at the school board meeting, the dates that we've landed on: Friday, August 23rd, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., and then again on Saturday, August 24th, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So this gives you a late afternoon, evening hours on a weekday, and then a weekend to open it up. Mr. Cliff and Dr. Boyd will be there to lead the tour and answer any questions. Just looking for some consensus on the board if these dates, this approach works for you all, to help, let the public know the condition of this building.
Yes, sir. Is there a consensus?
I agree. I agree.
Okay, and but I would ask that you spend your time with these other big issues and assign that to one of your staff members if you would.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is that okay with everybody else?
I think he still needs to be able to walk through it, not that he has to be there for the whole time.
Yeah, sure. He seems to show up all over the place.
Have we looked at all, like, got any pricing on tearing that building down?
To the best of my knowledge, no, sir. There could be some information that I've come across in my tenure here with King George.
At one point, Ms. Bender, you know the history of this. It was between 300 and 400,000.
Yeah, all there was a study done in there. I think there was a preliminary guess of how much it would cost.
Well, they had a estimate from a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's in there, and this is what general idea what it's going to cost. It was never hard. Mr. Stroud, this is up your bailiwick. What do you think?
I don't know.
You want to move it over to your farm?
So the number that was in the CIP, 600,000.
Okay. Well,
that is including also the environmental stuff that has to be taken care of, right?
We'd like to make sure that we're talking to local people about whether or not they can do that before we go anywhere else.
I think
some capacity.
What they had proposed in in discussion last time was the contractor was going to come in and they were going to bring in this crusher, crush up all the masonry products and sell those off to companies for concrete. So they had some profit in there too. And I had asked at the landfill committee, would they take all the stuff in our landfill for free? And that's never gotten an answer to that yet.
Yeah, I think mitigating the disposal goes a long way in the cost.
Okay. Alrighty. Secondary public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment. They be properly included in the record. Is there anyone for public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Dines, is there anyone online?
Mr. Chairman.
Has anybody received anything while we've been here? Alrighty, I'll close public comment. Now go to the closed session.
I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors convene to close session pursuant to State Code Section 2.23711A7 for consultation or briefing with legal counsel regarding actual litigation, and State Code Section 2.23711A8 for consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters. I invite the county administrator and the interim county attorney as needed because they are deemed necessary and/or their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of one or more topics to be discussed pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23712F.
Second.
Properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're now in closed session.
will now be recorded.
Take your seats. Everyone that's still here.
I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors return to public meeting and certify by vote that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting, and no action was taken.
Second.
Second. Certify.
So certified.
So certified.
So certify.
So certified.
I certify. Ms. Bender.
I'll move that we adjourn the Board of Supervisors to August 20th, 5:30 PM in the Rivercombe Boardroom.
Second.
Real quick
All
before
those in favor?
we do that, we have a very special guest here, Ms. Claudia Smarter. Can you please stand up and
Chloe.
let us all see you?
No, you don't have
Please.
to be on camera.
Thank you very much. Welcome to King George.
Thank you. Welcome home.
Aye.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 We're now adjourned.
Thanks.